Welcome to Covered in Pet Hair, a boozy show for pet lovers on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Isabel Alvarez-Arata, and today I have the pleasure of having a drink and a chat with a lady that is revolutionizing cat rescue fundraising. Welcome back to Covered in Pet Hair. I'm your host, Isabel Alvarez-Arata, and today I have the pleasure of having a drink and a chat with a pet parent, a fundraising guru. She's a cat trainer, behavior consultant, a professional pet sitter, an animal Reiki practitioner. She's a foodie, a wine snob, a world traveler, a fitness fanatic who is obsessed with pickleball and Paris. She was born and raised in New Jersey. She's wife to Scott, cat mom to the Possum 4. They are Jonesy, 15, Henry, 7, West, 4, and Jameson, 2. She also looks after a feral friend named Butch. She just celebrated a birthday, happy belated, and she is the founder and president of Mission Meow. She's Sally Williams. Welcome, Sally.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited we're doing this.
I know. I got to meet you at Super Zoo. I will never forget you because you were the one with the great hair and that great hat.
The hat. Everybody said that was a Burning Man kind of hat. I don't know. I thought it was very Elton John.
It was something. It was definitely something. Have you worn it since?
I've worn it since, but not like I'm waiting for the perfect party. Like there has to be like when people throw white parties or because it's this crazy, white hat with all the sequins and it's very, what's that called? There's a certain genre of apparel that's that, and I can't even remember what it's called, but it's kind of like this crazy, almost captainy looking hat with the goggles on it. And
yes, it's very interesting. It was something I've never seen anything like it before. And I don't want to see it on anybody else. It's like your signature look now for me.
Oh, well, thank you. And it was funny because that hat made it around the room that night.
Yes, it did. I even wore, I think I have a picture wearing the hat. It did not look as good on me as it did on you. I will say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I want to dig into all the things you've been doing in the past year plus, because I know Mission Meow just celebrated an anniversary. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Before we dig into all of the nitty gritty, I want to introduce our drinking game today. So anybody at home participating in our drinking game, anytime you hear this word, take a drink of whatever you're enjoying. Please be over 21 in the US to partake in an alcoholic beverage. Never drink and drive, and always drink responsibly. So what are you joining us with today? That is not a glass of wine.
It is not. So I know I had big plans. I have this beautiful Sancerre waiting for me. And then last minute, I got an invite to one of my passions, which is pickleball. So I have a delicious mocktail I am joining you with tonight. It's actually strawberry and mango and a probiotic yogurt.
Yes.
What's the protein? So I'll be sipping on something to get my strength for 2 hours of pickleball tonight. And the Sancerre is chilling for another time. So we'll do this again when I can appropriately enjoy the Sancerre because I love Paris. I had this whole
know. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I always know a true wine snob when they know Sancerre, and because I lived in the Loire Valley, or like on the east side of the Loire Valley, not the really known side, in Montargis, and that's all we had. Okay. We had Sancerre there all the time, and so I know a true wine drinker when somebody has Sancerre at home. I actually am having something else that true wine lovers like. It's a Gruner Veltliner. This is a Hungarian wine, and I love a Gruner Veltliner. So cheers! Thank you, Sally.
I have to know more about that.
It's such a nice herbal wine, kind of akin to like a Pinot Grigio, but bigger, a bigger wine. I love a Gruner Veltliner.
You got me with bigger.
Yes, it's bigger than a Pinot Grigio. You're always like, you can drink it anytime. It's like a picnic wine. But sometimes you want something a little more substantial. So that is what the Gruner Veltliner does for me. All right. Well, I always introduce this show with a game, and today is no different. We're going to play a game that I've called the Struggle Bus, because I have a very distinct feeling, and I think all people in the pet industry know that pet shelters and rescues are currently, and have been for a long time, on the Struggle Bus. Would you agree with that?
That's why Mission Meow is doing what we're doing. That's exactly it. So you couldn't pick a better one.
Exactly right. So I've taken some information from the interwebs regarding just some statistics about shelters, rescues, euthanasias, and this is a true or false game, but I ask that you give us your perspective from where you are in the country, because everybody's regions are different. I'd love to hear some perspective. So we're going to try to keep this short, but I'm sure we'll talk it through. So here we go. The first question is, according to the Humane Society of the United States, there are approximately 3,500 brick and mortar animal shelters in the U.S. True or false?
3,500. Okay, I'm going with true.
It is true. Does that seem low to you?
That was why I hesitated. That was my hesitation. Yep. Yes, just because when I was launching Mission Meow, I did a lot of research to look into, the brick and mortars, the smaller shelters. So my guess is that is probably on the low side. I don't know how current that number is, so maybe it's
22. So it's 2022.
Okay, so maybe because we know we lost a lot during COVID, who lost the brick and mortars, who are now existing as a foster-based group. Yes. So it could be closer to true because of that.
Okay, there are approximately 10,000 rescue groups and animal sanctuaries in North America.
10,000 in North America. I'm going to say false.
It actually is true according to these statistics. Did you think it was higher or lower?
I was thinking, complete North America, that kind of maybe push it higher, but...
Yeah, these are kind of low for me, and I'm surprised, but I guess it makes sense. If we don't have enough room for pets, this next thing is going to happen. Yes. There are approximately 6 to 8 million cats and dogs entering shelters each year.
I would say it sounds maybe even low, but I'm going to go with true again.
Yes, and what's interesting about this, that I found that the highest year for intake was actually 1973, and they were taking in 13 million.
1973 was the highest, really. That's interesting.
Isn't it? I just thought that was some interesting trivia they added. Okay, of the 3 million cats and dogs euthanized in shelters each year, approximately 2.4 million, or 80%, are healthy and treatable and could have been adopted into new homes.
I hate to say true, but I'm going with true.
It's definitely true. It's definitely true. 70% of cats that are euthanized in shelters equals about 1.4 million cats, according to the ASPCA.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me, unfortunately.
So
this is why all of us in rescue want to start our own sanctuaries, right? When anybody asks, what are you going to do when you hit the lottery? That's what we all say, because we want to save them all.
Yes, agreed. That's what I would do too, for sure. Approximately 50%, in some regions, it's as high as 66%, of shelter populations consists of cats.
They're saying that 50%, over 50% of the population are in the shelters are cats. Yes. So it's easily 50%. I would say it's probably even higher in a lot of places.
Yes, I would agree with that. So it says, as in some regions, it's as high as 66, 70%.
Yeah,
about
I know
600.
Locally,
really? Even in New Jersey?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm in Texas. You can just imagine the atrocity that it is here, unfortunately. Outside of this game, while I was researching this game, I went to the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary website, and they had the top 5 states for euthanasias in shelters, and it was not in any particular order, but it was Texas, California, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. And so I was not happy to be on that list as a Texan, but it's not really surprising at all.
No, I'm a little surprised in California, just because I am definitely biased on this towards the southern states,
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because of the population, I guess, because of the size of the
such
state.
A massive, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But do you see it being that more cats are adopted than euthanized in your area?
With the organizations that I'm familiar with, the organizations that I work with as Mission Meow, the organizations I see in New Jersey, sure, there are ones that are not, but I think that the adoption rate for what I see that's low.
Higher.
And
it is higher in your area.
There's a really good programs around here for getting feral cats returned to field and or out to farms or backyards or warehouses, working cats, quote unquote. Right. So, but I know that, that's a very different thing state to state.
It is. It's very regional. So that's why I like to bring these in and then ask my guests, like, what are you seeing? Because you guys are the experts in your area and with the organizations you work with. This I got from your website. 75% of community cat organizations cannot afford to pay their employees.
Yeah. I mean, it could be even more so now. Most of the organizations that we have talked to and work with, they don't have paid staff. They're all volunteers. That's why we talk about burnout so much, because these are people that have other jobs and are doing this over and above that because they have a passion for it, which we all do here. But the reality is that, doing that in your spare time, and we know the stresses that go along with it, where do you have time to take care of yourself? It's a sad reality of
it is.
Rescue. It's largely women. And largely volunteer.
Yes, absolutely. And if they are volunteering in a facility, according to your website, 80% of small shelters have aging facilities, rising costs of veterinary care, and very limited resources.
True. Yeah,
absolutely true.
Why we exist. These things are, and I'm sure some of these statistics may have changed since those numbers, because we launched a year ago and those numbers were probably a year before that. Mm-hmm. So things hopefully have improved, but not likely, unfortunately. We're seeing, the small shelters struggling and closing at an alarming rate. So, and I know how hard it is to keep up. The priority is the care of the cats. So sometimes things that you need for your building go by the wayside.
Of course, absolutely. Until there's some kind of catastrophe, and then it's like, oh no.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's terrible because you can't be preemptive, you can't be proactive with zero resources. Yeah. So you are a fundraising guru. You're obviously a true cat lover, a boozy cat lover like me. But how did you end up founding not one, but two cat-specific organizations aimed to helping people fundraise for either individuals or organizations? Tell me how you got to this moment.
So I take a long story short. So the first nonprofit, the Brodie Fund, was cat and dog, because I actually am a both lover. I'm just not to a both lover. My husband's not the dog person that I am. However, I will say I always felt like I understood cats. So that's why, that real connection. But so the Brodie Fund came about when my cat Brodie was diagnosed with cancer, and we decided to treat. He had a nasal tumor, which meant radiation 5 days a week for 4 weeks. And in that time frame, I stayed at the vet hospital, and I'm just one of those people that takes a lot in. Like, I notice things, I listen to things, and a common conversation I heard was either amongst families, spouses, or, client to veterinarian, the cost of care. And it was really the first time I had heard, and this is many years ago now. So this is about 8-9 years ago now. I heard economic euthanasia. And that was a term that really bothered me. And that meant that even though there was a treatment for your pet's cancer, you likely couldn't afford it. And then you were talking about palliative care, which inevitably would lead to economic euthanasia because you couldn't afford treatment. And I had never run a nonprofit. I got involved with one at that vet hospital to kind of get my feet wet. But the interesting thing was that they were paying for emergencies and things for the cats and dogs in the hospital, but cancer wasn't covered. So
Wow.
I said, well, how about this? How about under the umbrella of your organization, I start fundraising and we can have a separate little nut for pets with cancer. So I did it. My first event was a yoga event, and, it just kind of went from there. I quickly realized that I could do this and filed for 501c3 and launched the Brodie Fund. So for over 7 years, we gave grants to families that had cats or dogs diagnosed with cancer. We were a national organization. And what was different about us was we fully funded these cases. We didn't cap at, say, 2,000. And it all makes a difference. There are beautiful, wonderful organizations out there that do that. I felt like as somebody who was living with a pet with cancer, I knew the challenges of having that money. And I didn't feel like giving them a Band-Aid was helpful, because what if then you don't get the rest of the money? Then your pet stops treatment. The vet has to, like, it just, so we always fully funded cases. So, living in the pet cancer world was hard. I had another cat diagnosed with cancer. He was treated and fine. And then a third cat diagnosed with cancer, who was my soul cat, Marlin. And this was pandemic, Marlin having cancer, running a pet fund. And when I am involved with a nonprofit, I'm all in. So I had studied grief counseling. I mean, I was, these families that we gave grants to became my family. And eventually that was not sustainable for me emotionally. And I discovered what burnout was. And I didn't know that that could happen to somebody in the nonprofit world until I listened to a podcast one day. And I was like, a huge light bulb went on as to why my papers were stacking up and why I was not making clear, decisions. I felt like I was just struggling. And then I realized what that was. So we made a difficult decision after pursuing a lot of different possibilities, and we raised a lot of money and gave grants to the hospitals. We worked with legacy funds, and we said goodbye to the Brodie Fund, and I closed that chapter of my life and took some time off and took some time to heal. And in that time frame, I realized how much I missed nonprofits and how much I missed serving the cat community specifically. And I had seen what was happening because I was still getting all the newsletters and seeing all the social media, and I was seeing what was happening to shelters, rescues, TNR groups during the pandemic, and thought that's where I really want to help. I want to help these small groups that are really struggling. And the name Mission Meow came to me, did a little searching on the web, saw there was another group that had similar, but not the exact name. So grabbed the name. And then it was, well, what's my mission? And I realized I wanted to specifically help small rescues, small shelters, small TNR groups, because if they go away, we're in big trouble. And I wanted to make a big difference. So after talking to them, did a lot of interviews, finding out, how often do you get donations? Who are they coming from? Is it individuals? Is it businesses? All that kind of stuff. We narrowed down to what we wanted to do, which was we wanted to give bigger grants to small nonprofits. So grants like $10,000, because they really don't get those. The big organizations get those checks, 10, 20, 30,000 and more. And that's important. But the issue is if these other ones don't get anything, or they get the small ones, they never quite get ahead. So what we decided to do was we don't give grants for rent, for veterinary bills, for food, for litter, none of the basics. It's what's your dream? What do you really want? Do you want to launch a program? Do you need a van for transport? Do you want to renovate? Do you want to build a catio? Think big. So that's what we wanted to do. And then it's, how do you do it? How is this sustainable? Because looking for individual donors is a lot of work. And they come. And because I've been in the nonprofit world, it's a little bit easier for me to grow that. but it's grants and it's events. And then it's businesses. All those things were how the Brodie Fund ran, and really typically how a lot of nonprofits run. Grants these days, there's fewer. There's a ton of competition for them. And so it's a lot of work for maybe not as much payoff. So I kind of pushed that to the side. Events, well, I love them. I'm a party girl. I love that. They cost money. And the outcomes tend to be unpredictable. Events you think you're going to knock it out of the park, and then when it falls flat, you're like, what happened? And then the little event that you do turns into this tremendous fundraiser, like my giving strategy. So kind of said, okay, we're not going to focus on events. So I really landed on businesses. How can the businesses help more? And I've told this story before. There was a fire in a community nearby where a family lost everything, and the community came together. And independently of the families coming together, the businesses came together and all contributed, whether they just wrote a check, held a fundraiser, did a percentage of sales. And I was like, that's it. That is the foundation of an organization that will be sustainable. So I kind of call it business crowdfunding. So we have
love that.
Businesses that commit to giving. Right now we're giving quarterly. So we have currently 57 businesses, soon to be 60 businesses, and they sign on to give. So we just gave a grant in October, we'll give again in January, and so forth. And the goal is to eventually give 2 or 3 donation grants in that month. So it's good for us. It's a good structure. It's a good schedule. The businesses that come on don't feel overwhelmed. They're not giving every month. It allows them to contribute to organizations in their community that they want, but also be impactful with us. Right. And the cool thing is that there's all different size businesses. So if you're a big business and you can afford to give more, that's great. If you are just starting out, you can give less and give what you afford if you determine the level you want to come in at, because the thing is coming together. Right. That's how we make that big number. So for anybody listening, if you think of the math, if you have 50 businesses in a month and they average a $200 donation, just an average, that's $10,000 we've just raised. Before I've sold a t-shirt, before I've gone out to a convention, before an individual donor has donated, we have a $10,000 net. Yeah. And that's huge. Just in the fundraising month. And then because people donate every single month, you add that all in, and that becomes like our little safety net. So if somebody applies for a bigger grant, we have a resource to pull from. So our business partners are the foundation of the organization. And we're so fortunate because the cat community, or the cat loving community, because they're not all cat businesses, they're very generous. They're very passionate about helping, the cat rescue community as well. They love being able to pay it forward.
Well, I am so happy that you are sharing this with us, because you've only been around for a year and you're obviously doing amazing things. You're obviously so committed. What has been the biggest surprise doing this particular project that you've encountered thus far? And congratulations on a very successful first year.
Thank you. I don't know if I really have a huge surprise, other than it's not so much on the fundraising end of things. I guess this would be it. So the money is first and foremost, right? The grant that we give to a small organization is first and foremost. But right behind that is these amazing TNR groups, shelters, rescues, foster groups have now been validated. They've been seen and heard by a community that loves them. And what I guess surprised me the most was how much that has meant to them. And I think that goes back to what we talked about, where, the burnout and these groups not being sustainable. I don't know how long we've just sustained them for, but we know that by doing this, it's not just the money. They feel, oh my gosh, there are people that care about us. Look at this. businesses from all over the country. There's donors from all over the country, and they see us and they see the work we're doing, and we feel validated. We know our hard work is being seen. So I think for me, that was probably the biggest surprise, because I focused so much on the financial part of it.
Yes.
That the other part is, if you go, we video our grant giving and we give a check. There's tears every time, and they are tears of joy, sheer joy, because these organizations don't have the bandwidth to raise that kind of money. It's a capital campaign, you know, and you need to have a huge social media following these days. You need to have a huge sign up for your newsletters. That's the way money is raised now. It's not the same as it used to be. And so if you're a small org, and largely a lot of these small organizations across the country are down the road or not far from a bigger one, you know? And so there can be a little bit of competition for donors, especially in small communities.
Absolutely.
And so if you're a more, like, if your building looks newly painted or, you know, has a look, it doesn't mean you're necessarily doing better work, right?
Right. It's the appearance. It's the perspective.
Yes. Perception's reality. Because I worked with we gave a grant to a tiny organization in a shotgun city building. They've been around since 1990. Their cats are so loved. They're no kill. The cats stay with them until they find their home or permanently. And oh my gosh, I just love them so much. And they had some leaking and some ceiling tiles coming down, and their dryer had broken. And they didn't have a fire alert system. That was the one that I can't sleep at night, right? Like I can't sleep at night knowing this. And so giving them a grant allowed them to put new lights in, new ceiling tiles, the new dryer, all these things. So now when people walk in, it has a look where you feel like, oh, you know, they're doing good work. But the reality was, it was the same work they were doing before. Those cats are so well cared for. But you know, so that's what we want to make sure. And I hope that it's not just Mission Meow. I hope that there's another one. Like take what we're doing and do it in your community. Like keep doing this kind of work, because there are so many organizations out there. The hardest thing that I have to do with my committee is make the decision of who we're going to help.
I'm sure it's so interesting that you say validation, because as I was a pet business owner for 12 years before the pandemic hit, and I remember how important those little bits of validation were for somebody who worked with animals all day. So the pets can't validate you verbally. They can't reward your efforts. Obviously, they purr and they love you and they're happy to see you. And that validates a whole other side of your heart. But hearing from another human that your work is important is just so important. I've been there, and I can't agree with you anymore. Well, we got to take a break right here. And this is why I invited Sally to be my 100th episode guest, because yes, today we're celebrating Mission Meow's anniversary. We're celebrating my 100th episode, but we got to take a break. As soon as we get back, I'm actually going to speak to Sally about another thing we share in common, our love of senior pets. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after these messages from our sponsors. Welcome back to Covered in Pet Hair. I'm your host, Isabel Alvarez-Arata, and today I'm having a wonderful conversation with the founder of Mission Meow. She is Sally Williams, and she is just a star. I mean, just a star. She's somebody that I met at Super Zoo this year, fell in love with her immediately. Such a personable person, such a big heart, and such a badass lady.
Oh my God.
I love you. You're amazing. I really do. So when I invited you to do this 100th episode with me, I was like, I need a big personality, somebody who shares a lot of the same things I love and care about. So old cats are the best. Old pets in general. I want to invite you to play a second game with me, and it's called Old Cats Rock. And I want to give you, I'm putting you on the spot for this one. I'm giving you 1 minute on my clock to tell me why old cats rock. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, start.
Okay, old cats rock because they have the most amazing faces. that gray and white hair that happens, those faces are so kissable. Old cats rock because they literally are so comfortable in their skin. They just do whatever they want to do and they excel at it. You have a lap to fill, they're going to do it. Surprisingly, you want to play with them, they're still going to play. Don't give up on that. They are just as amazing. There is something about the way an old cat knows you. There's an intuitiveness about them. The bond that you're going to have with a senior cat is unlike anything else. I don't know if it's because they get it. You adopt a senior cat, I've always felt like they got it. They're so soulful. It's different. The kitten energy is all over the place, and the senior cat is so soulful.
That was amazing. Good job. Woo-hoo. I love that. That's going to make a great clip. All those reasons are perfect. Great work. I bet that in working with seniors or with shelters, you hear a lot about myths surrounding the whole senior cat thing. So first of all, for those who aren't familiar, what age would you consider a cat a senior? And what myths do you hear kind of regularly that you'd like to debunk if you had the opportunity?
I mean, I really think they consider 10 as senior. 10 is kind of where you're senior, but I understand it from the clinical perspective.
Right.
But I mean, I've seen 4-year-old cats that act the way we would think senior. And then you have 12-year-olds that are kittenish. So I think it's important from the perspective of veterinary world that when we hit the senior mark that we're doing things that we need to be doing. You want to be doing the biannual wellness exams, things like that. That's important. But I don't think it's like a label, I don't think we want to put a label on it, because just like humans, all seniors are very individual and have very individual needs. So just know your specific cat. That's what I would say is most important. And I think for adopting, yes, you want to have the right household. But again, it's very individual, right? Some 10-year-old cats are just chill, lap cat, just want the quiet home, might be a match for a house without kids. But then there's some quote unquote seniors that are still loaded with energy. You just got to match the individual and not the label of senior cat.
Absolutely. And seniors, I think that, the oldest cat on record was like 39. So I feel like 10, yes, we have to say that just so that maybe financially that there's maybe something coming, or there's maybe some joint supplement you might need to give.
Exactly. But that's why I say the veterinary perspective is important.
Yeah, but other than that, they have a long life. I think a lot of people don't want to get a senior because they think how many years do they have left? I mean, they could have 20 years.
We don't know the answer to that question when you adopt a cat at any age.
Any age.
1, you don't know. 2, you don't know. So why would we treat 10 any differently? I mean, cats are living longer because now we have better veterinary care. We have more options for food. We have supplements. People talk about enrichment now.
Yes.
So I think we're better pet parents, which translates into potentially, barring any illnesses or whatever, longevity, happy cat, enrich, have the scratchers, the trees, the toys, all the different things. And then always be prepared to have your lap ready. Or if your cat's not a lap cat, maybe it's a nook cat, or maybe it's like a Velcro cat, just wants to be right now. But just, I think you just have to look at things from the cat's perspective.
Always. And I think one of the things that people don't do enough is talk to rescues and shelters and tell them, this is my lifestyle. Who do you have that might need this? Because so many people go in being like, I want a Russian blue, or I want a Siamese, or I want a rag doll. And it's like, maybe you don't need that cat because maybe that cat's not available.
I think that's most interesting. I was an adoption counselor for a while, and I would just say to people, what was on your application as far as looks, whatever, just try to be leave it out there. And let's go into gazebos and see who gravitates towards you. Let's see what that is like. And oftentimes they walked out with nothing that was on their list, but was perfect for them.
Yes. Yes.
Like my 90-year-old, I had a 90-year-old adopter who came in looking for a senior cat. She actually outlived that senior. And she came in looking for a spicy kitty. I mean, came in with her Uggs and her, she was just decked out fully. And somebody brought her over to me and said, she's looking for a certain kind of cat. I'm thinking maybe Chiara is the right one for her, and you know her best. So I brought this lady over who became a very good friend of mine and introduced her to the kitty. And I said, you're going to pet her once, twice. And when you go in for number 3, she's going to turn around and smack you. But she's declawed, so it's not going to hurt you. She went over 1, 2, 3. She got smacked and she just looked her. She said, I want her. That's the one I want. And she had been there for a while because of that behavior, but it didn't bother her. And in fact, the bond those two had was so beautiful. And I was lucky enough to go to her home and have tea and spend time with her. She changed the kitty's name to Sarah. Sarah was this beautiful gray and white cat, big green eyes, and they were in love. So you just never know.
That is so awesome. I love that story that she outlived 2 senior cats. And it's really important to recognize that everybody's in a different place and every cat's an individual. So it's about playing matchmaker. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Completely. Yeah. And I've had people help me. After I lost my Marlin, I saw a kitty who I thought, oh, that's the perfect one. And when I talked to the organization, I knew them and they knew me. And they said, I know what you're saying because you like the way the cat looks, but we have another kitty that we think is perfect for your personality. And he was such a dorky looking cat. I was like, oh my God, he just had these huge eyes and his ears were too big. But then I met him. And he was perfect for me. They really knew. And he still has those eyes. We call it resting surprised face because he always
I've seen like that, yes.
Surprised. But he's perfect for me. So working with people who, ask the right questions and, your match is made. And we have a match made in heaven. Oh my God, I love my West so much.
Aw, have you adopted all of yours or have any shown up at your house?
Well, Butch showed up.
Yes, Butch showed up.
My feral kitty showed up because that's, of course, what's going to happen. But I adopted them. I have 4 cats. I call them the possum foursome. I had 2, then expanded to 3, expanded to 4. And I like 4. And so, when I lost Marlin to cancer, I just gave myself a little time and then I adopted a kitten that time, which I typically don't adopt kittens, but I did. And then sadly, shortly after I lost Marlin, 6 months later, I lost my Finnegan to heart failure and ended up with Jameson, who was also a kitten, but it was a good situation where it relieved pressure from somebody who took care of bottle babies and needed room in her house to keep moving forward. So I brought my little troublemaker home. He's all ginger. And I married ginger, so I know that.
Yes, I know. They say I don't have any gingers in the house. I don't think I can handle it. I'm a Latina, gingers and Latinas. I don't know if I can handle it. But before we wrap up, just quickly, I want to have you just give us a quick rundown on why it's so important to TNR. Like that TNR, you're talking about bottle babies, you're talking about, the people who are working with ferals. What is so important about that work?
Well, the number one problem in the cat community is overpopulation. And the way to reduce overpopulation is through trap, neuter, return. That is the end all. That's it. If we want to bring the stress levels down for the people doing good work in the cat community, TNR is the answer to all of that because it's going to reduce the cat population. It reduces the stress in the shelters. It reduces the stress in the foster system and the rescues. It's the answer. It's the answer to all of it. And, I see the burnout and the caretakers out there. We need to reduce these populations. And so it's really important for people to spay and neuter their pets.
Yes.
And for us to support TNR groups so that they have the means to keep this work going. Because people need to understand they do this for the love of cats. It is backbreaking, hard work.
It is.
It's rewarding work. They know they're making a difference, but it's not easy to be doing this. And also caretaking the colonies is not easy. But that's why trap, neuter, return. We need to reduce these populations.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I didn't want to finish up without hearing about that, because I know your organization supports shelters, rescues, and TNR organizations. Yep. So how can I and my audience support Mission Meow?
So you can support Mission Meow by going to our website, missionmeow.org. And the best way to support for individuals is to donate. That's the obvious way, because we are not a shelter or a rescue. So there's no supplies or things like that we need. But on the flip side, if you're a business that's interested in becoming a donor, you go to the website, click on business partners, and you get to have a conversation with me. And I share all the details about, it's important to know why we call it a partnership, because it is a partnership. There are perks to joining Mission Meow that we offer. We really want it to be something. It's not, oh, thank you so much for your money, bye-bye. Right. No, you come in, you join a family. It's a team that happens, and we make dreams come true. I mean, we really, really do. So it's so rewarding to be a business partner, because it doesn't take a huge contribution. You can be a small business, or you can be a big business, but you're not really sure. You're feeling us out. It doesn't take a lot, because it's coming together. So donating is huge, and becoming business partner. Those are the big things for us. And just know that when you donate to us, the money is going to go to an organization that's been fully vetted. We have, a group of people that vet these organizations. So, and what makes us unique is when you donate, and then that month comes around where we give a grant, you know exactly where your money went. It paid for launching a foster program. Right now, we're building a catio for an organization. We talked about the upgrades that we made before. So there's all kinds of things that we do, but you see it because the organizations give us photos and videos. So yes, exactly where your money goes, which is pretty cool. The next one you're going to see is when the catio is done. This is one of the things I've wanted so badly. You're going to see video of when the catio is done and they lift up the doors, and these cats can walk out of the shelter into a safe outdoor space. It blows I cannot wait to see that.
It's so important for them. I have a little patio that's for humans that my cat so enjoys. It's his favorite place to be. So I can only imagine in a stressful shelter or rescue environment how amazing that refuge would be for them. Well, I just want to it is incredible. You're incredible, and your organization is incredible. I just want to propose a toast to you for sharing your story with me, for celebrating my 100th episode.
Congratulations.
Person. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.
To you. I also want to propose a toast to my executive producer, Mark Winter. Thank you, Mark. And to our audience for joining us for these awesome conversations. Thank you for joining me for 100 episodes with some of my favorite pet people. I am so appreciative of this opportunity to chat with you and with my guests. So here's to a life covered in pet hair, because there's no better way to live. Cheers.
Cheers.
To learn more about Covered in Pet Hair, please visit coveredinpethair.com or petliferadio.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. That was it.